Welcome back. There are now growing concerns about the targeting of certain Americans. The Department of Homeland Security issuing notice warning about a heightened threat environment fueled by, quote, ideologically motivated violent extremists. Now, that alert taking on new focus following calls from some in the media to deprogram Trump supporters and comments like this from former CIA Director John Brennan. Watch.
And unfortunately, I think there has been this momentum that has been generated as a result of, unfortunately, the demagogic rhetoric of people that's just departed government, but also those who continue in the halls of Congress. And so I really do think that the law enforcement, Homeland Security, intelligence, and even the defense officials are doing everything possible to root out what seems to be a very, very serious and insidious threat to our democracy.
Joining us to discuss is Chad Wolf, a visiting fellow at the Heritage Foundation and former acting secretary of U.S. Department of Homeland Security under President Trump. Chad, thanks so much for coming on today. If you don't mind, just sort of react to the statement we just heard by John Brennan and also this call to sort of seek out and find violent extremists in the U.S.
Well, the Department of Homeland Security certainly has a role here, and I think the bulletin that they issued last week is part of their effort to make sure that they're communicating to the American people. I think what's interesting, though, about this bulletin is a lot of the political violence and a lot of the violent activity that we saw over the summer is hardly mentioned in this bulletin. So when we talk about violent activity trying to overthrow the government or trying to certainly target certain political actors, I think we not only need to look at the events of January the 6th, certainly, but look at what's been occurring in the country over the past 10 to 12 months. And so a lot of the activity that we saw over the summer, a lot of our political leaders did not, or I would say failed to comment, failed to condemn those actions over the summer. And so I think when we talk about political violence, and we talk about violent activity, we need to make sure that we're being very consistent, that we're calling out those that perhaps are on the far right, but also on the far left, and then everything in between. So hopefully as the department moves forward, they're not only looking at the events of January the 6th, but they're also looking at some of the violent events that occurred over the summer, making sure that those don't come back as well.
Yeah, I mean, you highlight this double standard. And for anyone who's been paying attention to what's going on and maybe not just watching, rosy news coverage of what's happening, you would have noticed that these protests had turned into riots in certain points, fiery but mostly peaceful. I mean, we saw the fire behind the reporter. And for anyone tuning in, we've been following and seeing these FBI arrests for the Capitol riot rioters, but you're wondering where's the accountability for those who destroyed the small business in Kenosha, Wisconsin? Has the FBI found who's to blame for that? Why is there such a strict focus to get a response for January 6th? Rightly so, by the way, but not the other damage that we've seen.
Well, I certainly agree with you. I know during in the summer, going back to July, August, where at least from a Department of Homeland Security perspective, we were dealing with violent opportunists and criminals in Portland for over 90 different nights. Every night they were trying to break into a courthouse and assault law enforcement officials and others there. And it got some coverage, but not a lot. And so we were encouraging the FBI from a DHS perspective to investigate those individuals, investigate how they're being armed, who's financing them, and the like. And so, look, I think there has been some investigations into that. There's been some prosecutions into what occurred over the summer. I would like to have seen more. So I know the FBI is looking into that, but you're certainly right. There is certainly a trend at the FBI, Department of Justice, and others. They will go very aggressively on the events that we saw on January 6th. And again, as you said, rightfully so. But they need to make sure that they do that across the board in a very consistent manner. Because when you don't see that consistency, that, again, signals to other individuals and other groups that perhaps they can, again, do this type of violence with little repercussions. And so we need to send a signal to each and every group that's going to use violence to a means to an end, that they can't do that, and that law enforcement is going to investigate and prosecute where appropriate.
Yeah, we'll see what happens moving forward.